Hello, stars. How are you today? I wanted to get on here and talk about a file I had given away several months ago. It's on cognitive distortions and unhelpful thinking. I believe I had posted that to the group a couple of months back, but I'm not sure how um, the document that I presented was presented in a way where you can understand it. So I'm going through some papers and I'm like ready to shred a lot of things that I, don't, am not using right now because I already have them saved somewhere else. But I before I did that, I just had to get on here and share some of these cognitive distortions and unhelpful thinking, which is also a personal development tool that will help us get along a lot. Personal development helps us in every area of life, anyways, by itself, within itself. But what makes cognitive distortions and unhelpful thinking is that it helps in relationships, it helps with emotional intelligence, it just helps with an overall understanding of how we think, because a lot of the problems that we have is the way we think about things, not really so much the problem itself. Usually the problem is maybe like 10-15%, a very low percentage of the situation. Really how we think about it is always the problem. So I wanted to go over the document that I had presented in the PDF, and I don't know if it's still available in the group. I did look on there, and I think it is still, but I have updated it since then. So, adopting flexible preferences about you, others, and the world in general is a healthy alternative to inflexible and rigid rule keeping. Rather than making demands on yourself and others, instead pay attention to the language. Replace words like must, should, need with prefer, want, and wish. Limit approval, limit approval of unhelping thinking styles. Would you have a satisfying life even if you did not get the approval of everyone you're seeking it from? Contemplate on the idea that the world does not play by your rules. Other people tend to have their own rule books. No matter how much you value kind and considerate behavior, the others in life may not place the same value on it. Keep your standards, preferences, and ideals, and ditch your rigid demands about how you, other people in the world have to be. Have to be. And I emphasize that. So there are there's four, well, three. Okay, so there's three different cognitive distortions, unhelpful thinking that I have presented here. The first one is finger pointing, blame. It's a dirty word because it implies failure or negligence. It's easy to play the so called blame game where we quickly look for a scapegoat as opposed to accepting responsibility for our mistakes. However, this can escalate into a downward spiral of destruction, sparking everything from war to road rage to just general unhappiness. It's so easy to finger point at others in our circumstances rather than taking the full responsibility of our actions and the way in which we conduct ourselves. This can be destructive not only in our thinking but also in our relationships, personal relationships, and professional relationships. Rather than pointing the finger at others, we can learn to point the finger at ourselves first by becoming better evaluators of our own thinking patterns. And in doing so, taking a better degree of responsibility in our own life. So placing the blame on someone else, finger pointing someone else for failures in your life or the way that you feel, is a cognitive distortion. It's kind of like you're waiting for somebody else to take responsibility for you because they did this, they did this, they did that, they did that. So, in result, this is how you are. So, and I do understand that, and I have fell victim to uh, finger pointing and blaming family members for how I've been treated and how I felt. And I just wish someone would just admit that that's what they did or that's what they were trying to do. And, and for a long time, like, I just wanted someone to take responsibility for what they had, the feelings that I had had, until I realized through a lot of spiritual development, personal development, and all of that, that that's not that's not their responsibility. That is my responsibility to take a hold of my emotions, because guess what? They're going to live their life. They're going to keep doing whatever they are doing. They're not thinking about how I feel. I'm sitting here falling apart. Most people probably don't even care. So what's going to happen to me? So I have to get up and take responsibility for myself, and can't really point the finger or blame for anybody for any of my failures. If I didn't finish school, that's not anybody's responsibility, whether my mother didn't sign the paper when I was a teenager, or my dad didn't pay for school, or any of that. That none of that is relevant to my life, to yours either. So finger pointing is a unhelpful cognitive distortion thinking. So the next one is personalization. When you believe that everything others say or do is some sort of direct personal reaction to you. Also, when you compare yourself to other people and try to determine who is smarter, better looking, etc. If you think in this way, you may see yourself as responsible for some unhealthy external event that you were not even actually responsible for at all. For example, you were late to dinner and caused your interpretation of your feelings. Is there any evidence that suggests something bad is about to happen? Wow, you showed up late. What's going to happen? Now, sometimes people do try to make you feel bad because you did something, or maybe perceive that as disrespect. And in some instances, that could be perceived as disrespect, that it is maybe your responsibility to try to get to places on time. If you say you did, it is your responsibility to keep your word. But if you're running late, or if something happens and, like, hey, we don't have to lose our mind over what we think somebody else might think. And for a long time ago, I really stopped doing that. Like, just not caring what anybody think. I'm doing my best. So, hey, but whatever you think, oh well, I can't, that's not going to squeeze my best, make it better for me. I'm doing my best. So, right and wrong, rigid rule keeping, right and wrong. When you have a list of rules about how you and other people should behave, well, those rules are those personal rules that you have, and those boundaries, those rigid boundaries that nobody knows about. And if they step into it, you quick to snap back, like they didn't even know that they were crossing a boundary, like you were not clear about yourself. Okay, so all right, let me read. Those who break the rules make us angry, and if you break the rules, you feel guilty as a result. People often believe that they are trying to motivate themselves with should and shouldn't, almost as if they must punish before they can and do anything. For example, I must, I should, you should, you should. Such statements provide insight into the standards you tend to uphold and the things that you expect of others and yourself. These standards at times can be helpful, but however, they can also create unrealistic expectations that you or other people will find it difficult to live up to. The inflexibility of the demands that you place on yourself, others, and the world around you often means you do not adapt to reality as well as you could. You believe that you must have the approval of your friends and the associates. This causes you to feel anxious and in various social situations, and drives you to try to gain everyone's approval. You think that you try very hard to be considerate and kind. In return, they really should just be kind and considerate. However, because your demand is unrealistic, sadly, other people are governed by their own priorities, and you often feel let down by others who don't act in the same way in which you do. You believe that you absolutely should never let others down. This means that you rarely put your own needs first. And in many areas of your life, you don't assert yourself and you end up taking more than your fair share. And you end up stressed as a result. So, having these rules about yourself, about others, and expecting people to fall into those expectations is rigid rule keeping. What no one else really knows about but you. And I can say for myself, I have been in, I'm not haven't been a rigid rule keeper. I've always been clear about what I expect, what I'm not going to tolerate, and all of that for most of my adult life. However, I have been in instances where other people, I and I'm a person who don't you don't have to put your boundaries up with me. Like I don't see myself as a person who just oversteps boundaries. But there are people out there who places these walls up like and out of nowhere. And I'm just like, okay, all right, uh, okay, and just being a working on my personal development myself, I can understand. I was like, okay, they must got a lesson on boundaries and they want to implement it on everybody and all that. So I go, okay. And I back up. I won't cross your boundaries. Like I'm just not a person who's gonna cross boundaries. Like I'm very polite and respectful, and I really give people what they want if I'm in their space. So like in their space is what they say. So it's kind of pretty hard um get me offended if I'm in your space. Like if you tell me to sit here, sit there. I'm not gonna bring my rules. Like I do what I want. And I sit where I want to sit. Not in someone else's space. So so yeah, so that's really hard. And even me being like that, there are people who are looking for you to do something so they can put you in your place. So, and if you don't do that, you can annoy them like so much more. So that's what I think is really important to take personal development seriously, because really when we're not taking our personal development seriously, we're actually projecting things onto other people, and we're actually expecting other people, putting expectations on other people of how they should be, when actually that's how we should be, and we know that that's how we should be. But we have so much things clouding our judgments in our mind that we are not able to see that or reach to that point and that level to get us into working on that, because personal development is hard. It's not an easy task by far. So I wanted to share that with you because I am going to get rid of these papers. Have too many papers. So questions of self-reflection: if which of these destructive thinking patterns can you recognize inside of your own thinking, and how are these unhelpful thinking patterns negatively impacting your current and personal relationships? Okay, well, you think about that and you let me know. Okay, well, I will see you around. Don't forget to text me *1 to 42828. Don't forget to book a call with me. You can get on a call with me for 15 minutes for $27. No one does that. That is like so that is like a excellent price to pay to get on a phone call with someone who is wanting to help you out in your life. So what else can you do? You can sign up for my email, and I will make sure that you have access to the link. And I have so much more to share with you, so stay tuned. Think about these cognitive distortion, unhelpful thinking patterns, because there's a lot more where that came from. Okay, we'll talk to you later. Bye bye.